Hello, everyone. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he has risen.
This is Bright Week. It is the week after Pascha, when we are celebrating the resurrection and we are enjoying our friends and our family and our feasts, and we are appreciating all the things that we fasted from. And tonight we are going to talk about light because Christ is the light of the world and how important light is to our health and our emotional state and our bodies and our DNA. And we're going to talk about sunlight versus junk light and what is the difference between the two, because there is a big difference, right?
Huge difference.
Huge.
Yeah. We're going to totally nerd out on some health talk tonight.
Yes, I learned a new word, biohacking.
Oh, okay. Yes. I am like kind of a female biohacker, kind of love it all. I got wrapped into the male biohacking scene online a couple of years ago, and I found a lot of podcasters. It's though I will say I credit a lot of this, the biohacker guys, they go so nerdy and so crazy sometimes, but I kind of love it. And I love health optimization. And I love it when people just love life and they feel good. And I want to feel good all the time. And so I think they just kind of, and a lot of them are a little conspiratorial minded as well. They've got eyes to see what's happening in the world. And because it's a lot to do with food and CHEM trails and pollutants and toxins that we put in our bodies. So, but yeah, that's funny. Biohacking, we can be girl biohackers. I don't know if I really...
Like biohacking is just kind of a way to get us back to baseline because our environment is so toxic. And we're going to learn even the light that shines on us is toxic. If it's artificial. I feel like biohacking is just a way to get us back to baseline health.
Yeah, right.
Right. So
to remember how we originally operated as human beings.
Yes, it's so ridiculous how much effort you have to put in to combating all of the different ways that you're being poisoned. So tonight we're going to talk about light and poison light. And I thought this was so interesting because, Genesis 1, God created light. And John 1 is a mirror of Genesis 1 when God created light. And when you study theology, you learn about how God is uncreated light. And created light is a symbol for uncreated light. And we are not just our body, but we also are not a whole being without our body. We have a body, a soul, and a nous, according to orthodoxy. And that is in contradiction to the Gnostic idea. And we talked a little bit about Gnosticism last week. The Gnostics think the body is a prison. It's an evil thing that we need to detach from, and our spirit or our soul that floats around like a ghost is the pure essence of who we are. But that's not true. And that's not what we believe as Orthodox. So the body and taking care of the body and disciplining the body, saying no to the body at the right time, saying yes to the body at the right time is so important because we all will be resurrected in the body and experience things in the body such as heaven and hell. So yes, let there be light. And then Christ is the light of the world. That's how important light is, right? We are the light of the world. And he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the light. And then on the other hand, you have Lucifer, which means light bearer. And he is the false light. So that's the junk light.
Okay, I see what you're doing here.
Right?
Okay.
And when you're received into the church, you are called newly illumined. So light is so important to our way of life and our way of thinking. And then on the other hand, when you're raised to the third degree in Masonry, You are unblindfolded in front of a five-pointed star, which is Venus or Lucifer, and uh, it's now you have seen the light.
Mm.
So, in
Junk light.
yes, junk light. In esoterica, light is just as important in Christianity because it is a false.
It's the inversion of
Yes,
the true light.
exactly.
Again, it's a mimicking of what God created. My favorite light story in the Bible is Christ, the transformation, and he became such a beam of light. He was so bright that his disciples couldn't gaze upon him or look at him. They had to shield their eyes. And I think that's what Christ, because then, there's an image or an icon of that where I believe it's John and Peter could gaze at him after they became illumined themselves.
Hmm.
But we can become illumined, and we have to honor our body. I think that our body is a gift, and I don't think we talk about that enough. It's almost as if we get caught up in, certain ways of thinking or belief systems, and we just kind of not let ourselves go, but we stop learning about ourselves. We have the internal state and our external state. And I feel like most people just focus on their external, but what's going on inside of us? What's your gut look like? And I think once you marry the two, the inside and the outside, then the light is actually starting to emanate out of you in an organic way.
Yes, the body and the soul and the nous are together in Synergia. I think it's called Synergia. And you are not yourself without your body. So when we die, we are separated from the body, and we will be in a sort of intermediate state until the resurrection. But this goes against ideas like reincarnation, where you can have several different bodies and still have the essence of Kristen or Jamie or whatever as you go through life or multiple lives in different bodies. And that is not what Orthodox teach or believe at all. So listen to a couple people talk about the light and what they have coined it the light diet. So just like your body needs food, it also needs some kind of diet of the proper light, right?
Yep.
And I mean, listening to these people, they think that what you eat and your exercise regimen and everything is almost secondary to what kind of light you're getting. That's how important it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he likened it to like a car. And he said, you can put the best gas in the car, as in food in your body. But if your spark plugs are misfiring, you're still going to have a problem. And that's what the light that you need to be feeding on is represented by. So let's see.
It did remind me of that. Do you remember that girl online? She was like Russian, and she said that she didn't eat food. She only ate air and light.
Yeah. Oh, did she look like an alien?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember her.
I was like, okay, well, we'll talk about food too. But yeah, I mean, she was kind of halfway smart with it. Con artist.
Well, I definitely think you can put your body through rigors of, fasting and things like that.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. But if you don't have the proper light, then, and you know more about this than I do, your mitochondria is not going to reproduce correctly, or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, no. I mean, so our mitochondria is, as we as everyone's always talking about it, it's like, it's the powerhouse of the cells, that's all we were taught in high school. So a lot of people don't know a whole lot about your mitochondria. It is the engine that fuels your energy. So think about if your mitochondria is not reproducing and activating within your body, you have mitochondria in everything in your body except for red blood cells. So everything you eat, sunlight, pollutants, everything is affected by, it affects your mitochondria. But the most important, according to these podcasts we listen to, it's light, and it's real light. It's sunlight, not artificial light. And so, and we can get into like mitochondria creates ADP, which is ATP is the energy currency of our body. So when you wake up in the morning, most of the time most people have higher energy once they get up and out of their like sleepy state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mitochondria is healing itself every time you sleep. So poor sleep, you are not repairing your mitochondria. You're not giving your body a chance to refuel or recharge itself. It's really like a battery. And when you sleep at night, depending on how good your sleep is or how important you make sure your sleep is, sometimes your battery can be fully charged and then you're operating in what's called ATP. But when your battery's down, you are kind of working on a reserve called ADP. So they work together. And so ADP production, I wrote this down, is the energy production cycle that kind of mimics what we would see in chloroplast. And so like this podcast we're listening to is like, what a plant is doing outside with the sun. We're basically like plants, we have to get sunlight on our skin, and we have to get it in our eyeballs, and we have to like fuel our body with the sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll go into like, SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Like, what is that? And why do people get depressed in the wintertime? It's because they lack the sun.
Mm-hmm. You just made me think when I quit wearing sunglasses, because you said we need to get the light in through our eyes, right? Not just on our skin, but like look right at the sky at different times of day for different processes that we need in our body. And maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, Jay had a friend who had Lyme disease, and he says, I stopped wearing sunglasses and you need to too, and nobody needs to wear them. So we just kind of put our sunglasses away because we wear them all the time. They're cool.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even walk out the door before you put your shades on, right?
Yeah.
When you're driving a lot and you got to look hip, you got to wear your shades, man. But also my eyes were very sensitive to the light. Like I'd step outside and be like, I need my glasses.
Yeah.
But when you wean yourself off of those, you realize you don't need them at all. And you feel a lot better. And then when you look around, you see everybody wearing their sunglasses, it just kind of looks goofy now. It looks like they're handicapping themselves or something.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the light spectrums.
Okay.
So, like the sun gazing. So getting up early in the morning and sun gazing, or even because a lot of people can't like run out and like look at the sun early in the morning.
Yeah.
So they were saying like just even looking at even a gray sky or a blue sky early in the morning, because you're getting this this frequency of the light spectrum in through your eyes that is basically telling your body, it's fueling your mitochondria, but it's also telling your body, hey, I need a spike of cortisol. Like our bodies naturally produce cortisol in the morning when we wake up. That's why we get that spike of energy. But then when you do some sun gazing exercises, it takes your health optimization to like a whole nother level.
Hmm.
I personally don't get up and sun gaze, but what I do like to do is get up and go for walks early in the morning, like around my neighborhood. And but if I lived in like an optimal area, like I know a lot of people that live on the ocean, they'll get up and view the sun rising early in the morning.
So you don't look directly at the sun ball itself, right? You just want to
So
see outside. What?
in the early morning when it's rising and when
Yeah.
it's setting, there's a window of time where you can actually gaze at the sun and it
Okay.
doesn't harm you.
Okay.
You cannot do that during the day though, because it will harm your eyeballs.
Yeah.
But there is a window of time where you can actually gaze at the sun.
Okay.
Um, but say you don't get up early, or say just getting outside and like getting light into your eyes in the morning is so vitally important to just the way your energy production works.
Okay.
And a lot of us, we just think about our lives. We wake up, we take a shower, we get ready for work, we get in the car, we drive enclosed in a car, and then we walk into an office building and we sit at a desk, and you're just getting blasted with artificial light all day. And then you get in your car and you drive yourself home, and then you get in your house and you turn on all the lights, and you don't, get any sunlight at all.
Yes, and I'm thinking this is your typical corporate 9 to 5 lifestyle where you are under fluorescent lights all day long, and they're just beaming down on you, and
Killing you.
they're killing you. And then you go home, and if you have those compact fluorescent light bulbs, those
Mm-hmm.
spinny one, not spinny, curly ones, the ones that are supposed to last forever, the high energy.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are so toxic. Like the light that it gives off is so toxic. And then if it breaks,
Mm-hmm.
you are in big trouble. Like if it gets on your carpet and
Oh, yeah.
whatever's in there, it can make you really sick. So
Yeah.
if you have any of those thingies in your house, get rid of them right now.
Yeah. So, and not to mention, if you're in the middle of summer and you're driving to work in the morning, most people put on their shades and then they're blasting themselves with music that's brainwashing them, and the news. I mean, it's just everything is like the normal routine is extremely toxic. And
I
so
know. That's what I was
it's,
saying before. Like the amount of energy that I expend just to combat the toxicity that's being thrown on me is ridiculous.
well, this is when I learned about this light diet. I don't really follow the light diet, but we'll get into that. But just when I learned about light and what I was exposing my body to, I thought, no wonder everyone is a depressed or anxious mess. And they think they need prescription medications to fix them because they don't know how to fix themselves. We're not taught it. You have to go out and like dig, 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 dig. And then you find these people who are in a whole nother, it's a lot of work to listen. I mean, this podcast Jamie and I listened to is 3 hours long, and
Yeah, I listen to 3 3-hour ones. So
oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and then I was telling Jamie just before we met to record, it was like I had to stop because I kept learning one word and then it would take me down a new path. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's linking here too. And so we have a lot of notes. We're kind of all over the place, but I think it's probably a good thing because there's just so much to say about this subject. But I do want to, when I discovered about light, I kind of went fanatical with it, to be honest. I was like thinking about buying like the amber light bulbs and replacing all of my light bulbs in my house so that if I had to turn light on at night, it'd be red spectrum light, not blue.
Yeah.
Because right now, this is all blue spectrum. So my body is taking in this light and I'm still telling myself, hey, it's daylight. So instead of my body starting to naturally decrease in cortisol, and then the production of melatonin is supposed to start the moment that it starts getting darker out.
Mm-hmm.
And so melatonin is what makes us go to sleep. And it's really important to our health that we have optimal melatonin production, which is also produced out of the pineal gland.
Okay.
So there's a lot moving here. So we've got calcified pineal glands all over the place.
From
And
fluoride.
so we're also, as soon as the sun goes down, what do? We just go through the house and we turn on all the lights, or we stay at work, or we turn our screens on. And what happens is that's a second spike. We artificially spike a second set of cortisol production in our body, which suppresses, once again, melatonin to be distributed correctly. So and cortisol is our stress hormone. It is our fight or flight. It's what tells our body it's time to get going. And so if you have a lot of women that struggle with weight have high cortisol levels. They're stressed out. So we got to lower the cortisol levels. And people don't realize they're doing it to themselves by exposing themselves to light, artificial light at night.
And just think how many hours you spend staring at your computer. So not only do you have the blue light coming down from the fluorescence, you're staring right into that blue light from your computer screen or your phone. And it's almost every waking moment you're looking at a screen in the modern world, right?
It's bad.
And all of that blue light is going into your eyes. They can buy glasses that filter out the blue blocker.
Yeah, blue blocking glasses.
Yeah. But I don't think that's going to help with like the cortisol and.
Well, you have to have, there's blue blockers out there that look normal, like they're not amber colored. But the amber colored ones actually do help. So like a lot of these biohacker guys, like the ones that are like, I'm optimal health man. They're like, I'm going to go out in public and party with my blue blocker glasses on that are like amber colored. I've never done that. I thought about getting a pair. I don't know. I think maybe, I have no idea. The more I like started studying this subject again, I thought to myself, why do I not have blue blockers on at night?
You just made me think of a funny story. One time we were on the school bus and we picked up this hitchhiking hippie, and he gets on and he's wearing like red sunglasses. I mean, the lenses and everything were red. And we're riding along. He's like, oh, what time is it? And I tell him what time it was. And he's like, okay. So he takes off these red ones and he puts on a different color, like orange or something like that. He had 8 pairs of glasses for all the different times of day that were supposed to help with this, prop. Like, I'd never seen such a thing. I'm like, what a character.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So what do you have? What's your, because we'll talk about food as well in this episode, but do you have more trouble eating like a healthy diet or sleeping?
Probably sleeping. I have always been a sleepy person. Like, there's never a time where I don't want to take a nap.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm always down for a nap, like no matter what time it is. And yeah, definitely sleep. If my life isn't comfortable in a way that helps me relax, like I can't fall asleep. Like I have trouble sleeping alone in a house. I have trouble waking up in the morning. I'm pretty grumpy. Not grumpy, but like just I don't want any stimulation at all for a period of time transitioning from sleep to wake. Like I've, lived with people, as soon as I wake up and I come out of the room, they're like, blah, 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 because they've been up for hours already. And I'm just like, I cannot right now. I don't drink coffee, but I need my things,
Yeah.
And I've known people that just as soon as the sun rises, their eyes are open and they're ready to go. And I've always kind of envied them because I am a dragger out of bed. Like I do not want to get up.
Hmm.
I don't wake up fully until maybe like after 9:30.
Okay.
And so I've missed the sunrise. Like I've totally failed already in the light diet because I don't want to get out of bed. I typically, right now, our schedule, because we do, the shows and we like watch movies and stuff, we don't really fall asleep until 2 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
late.
So we're
I'm
night
a
owls and
I'm not a night owl.
yeah.
I like to go to bed at like 10
Uh-huh.
and I like to be, well, my body naturally gets up at like 7. That's pretty early, but I don't get going. Like I have a period of time too
Yeah.
between like 7 and 8 where I have to like become a human and like really wake up
Mm-hmm.
and drink my coffee and stare. I like stare at a wall. I do all the things. I
Yeah.
just like have to wake up. But yeah, I have a lot of energy in the morning, like a lot. And then I like crash about 2 or 3. And then it's 8:30 now. I would say I've got a solid hour left in me and then I'm going to be done. Like it's just, yeah, I guess how different bodies operate.
They were talking about circadian rhythms
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and how you kind of have to discipline yourself to go to bed at a certain time so that your body will wake up at a certain time and you can get the benefits of the different lights. But I just don't know. Like, I have
Yeah.
never been able to wake up early, early. If I wake up early, like my day's ruined almost because I'm
Mm.
really groggy and my eyes are puffy. And this is probably too much information, but sleeping in past 9:30, like from 9:30 to 11, that's when I get the best REM or whatever. Like that's when I sleep
Yeah.
the hardest is early morning until like almost noon. And also like that's when my body wants to have a bathroom movement.
Okay.
And if
Those are
I
good.
don't get that sleep, that heavy, heavy sleep, then my body won't do that. So
Ah,
I get
okay.
backed up and stuff if I am not allowed to sleep in. It's weird. I don't know how I can change that.
Well, that's your body.
Yeah.
We have to honor our bodies. So you could do instead of morning sun gazing, you can do evening sun gazing.
Yes, that's a
There
good
you go.
alternative. I was
Yeah.
definitely going to put watch the sunset on my list of
Yes.
things to do. If you can't watch the sunrise, then at least watch the sunset. And
But
this made it,
I was just going to say, I do think it's important though. There was a study that said, you can have like two. So your nervous system doesn't fully reset itself or like calm down. Um, unless you're getting consistent sleep every night, because that's
Mhm.
how it's healing itself is at night while we're sleeping. But you can like you can stay up later, like 2 to 3 nights a week, and your body can still like function at its optimal like state. Did you hear that part?
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah, they said
interesting.
like 5 nights stay on your regimen and 2 nights
Yeah.
and deviate from that. And
Yeah.
then just real quick, this is so crazy, but you need to look it up and just to like pepper in some conspiratorial stuff is like, Gil Bates.
Yeah.
He wants to block out the sun. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
So literally cut us off from something that's even more important than food and water.
Yep.
They want to.
Hmm.
So there's
Right,
that.
exactly.
And then okay, this was so interesting. And we're gonna deviate the topic just a little bit, but this came up in the Matt Maruka podcast. So he has a whole show called The Light Diet. That's like his thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about SEMEN retention
Yes.
and how important that is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, so is this an Eastern thing? But then I was like, no, because, Orthodox Christianity, um, unless you're married, you're not to be releasing that at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep.
monks and holy men and unmarried people are supposed to retain that because Matt says it's the most refined fluid and the retention has health benefits. You become more attractive, you smell better, your pheromones become better because it depletes your zinc.
Yep. That was interesting. But so, yeah. And he was learning it from like I think an Ayurvedic type of discipline.
Mhm.
He's 20, this guy's really, really smart, but he was young when he gave this talk. This was like 2 years ago. So he's still young, but really smart guy. His name's Matt
Maruka?
Maruka.
Yeah.
And he is the creator of the light diet. He's a total like bro,
Biohacker,
biohacker
bro.
type, biohacker bro. But it was really encouraging to hear like two smart dudes talking about this and this is how to raise your consciousness, how to become a better human in general.
Mhm.
And we, from not just like health benefits, but it also like, he was saying that this SCAMEN
Uh-huh.
was, has a lot of like light particles built into it.
Yes.
And that was really interesting too, aspect of that.
Because when the swimmer meets the egg, there is a flash of light that happens that starts the process of the cell division. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't,
And that
no.
is something that they came across when they were trying to figure out how to clone things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, is that they had to artificially shock the cell to get it to divide. So it's again another example of artificial light versus natural.
Real light.
Yeah. And so your first moment of conception is a flash of light.
Mm, that's good. That's really good.
So when you study like Eastern mysticism and stuff, and you learn all these Ayurvedic healing methods and techniques and things, and they're good for you, right? But then when you start to learn about orthodoxy, you realize this has all been in place already. They have,
mhm.
regimens and techniques that the monks, we're gonna talk about that when we talk about the actual 8 steps of the light diet. But there's nothing missing in orthodoxy that you can't get from the
Somewhere
Eastern.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I do. I thought that it was just, it would be, since we're kind of more of like an Orthodox space online. I mean, I encourage all viewers, but we have a lot of Orthodox friends and family. I think it's really important that we as Orthodox Christians talk about our health. We talk about theology and we talk about, what books we're reading, but like, what's your gut biome look like? How's your gut working? How's your heart operating? How's your sleep? How's your depression? Are you depressed? Like what's going on there? And I
Mhm.
think it's really important we start talking about how are we operating in the world, because we're a reflection of Christ.
Yes, and your
So
body is your temple, right?
yeah. Amen, sister. Yes.
And so one more thing about the SEMEN stuff is like, even if you are married, there are periods where you fast from intimacy. So married men are becoming depleted of their nutrients when they're intimate with their wife, because there's an energy exchange there. They talk about that in the Eastern stuff, but we fast from that at certain periods so that you can rebuild your
Your,
nutrients.
as Matt was calling it, your chi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are energy beings. So, I mean, we can dance around it all we want to, but there's a lot of overlap with a lot of things in Eastern mysticism, or even in Eastern Christianity. There's a lot of things that overlap that we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because like we're talking about a different subject or trying to look at it from a different lens. It's I think a lot of people get scared to talk about stuff because that was old self. Okay, well, old self still knows X, Y, and Z. So how does old self assimilate into new self with the proper and right thinking,
Yeah. So orthodoxy is kind of like the skeleton that we build things on now instead of
Mm-hmm.
Hinduism or Buddhism or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote down your cells emit biophotons or ultraviolet light, which triggers the process of mitosis, but they tell us that UV light causes cancer. Can you speak on that?
Well, how many times have we been told, put your sunscreen on before you go outside?
Every skincare person in the world will tell you to smear sunscreen on your face, and I never have. And they're like, get SPF this or that. And I'm like, no, because I think that's what gives you cancer. What do you think?
And I didn't even know all the science stuff around sunscreen, but for me, I just didn't think I didn't need it. I don't know why. I mean, I'm very Irish, so and you're fair skinned as well. But I was like, if I get in the sun, I'm just going to regulate how much sun exposure I get or put on a hat or something. But it's funny how many people preach, put your sunscreen on if you're going to be outside, but no one knows what a solar callus is. And did you learn about the solar callus in the podcast? So
that just like your base tan kind of thing?
So yeah, it's basically exposing your body to the sun on a regular basis. And then the sun puts a callus over your skin. And it's kind of like a base level of what your body. So say you are out in the sun, and I know I don't need a whole lot of sun, but if I lay out in the sun, my face starts getting warm and I'll start turning a little pink. And that's when I know I'm done. My energy, my body just fed itself with the sunlight. And so I don't need to force myself to stay in that sun to get more. It's like I'm charged. So I need to go back inside. But a lot of people don't know where their limit is because they don't have a relationship with light, with the sun. So it's like you were talking about this earlier, we see cats and dogs go lay out in the sun all the time. And then they get hot or they're done and they get out of the sun. Like my cats will chase the sunlight through the house and lay in it.
Yeah.
And they just bathe in it. And sometimes Pima, my older one, will just gaze into the light. And I'm like, she is such a smart cat. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah. Or like reptiles do that.
That's so true. Like iguanas.
Yeah.
All
Turtles,
of
if they don't
them.
get, the right amount of light, their shells will not grow right, or alligators or all kinds of, all the creatures need the sunlight, right?
So yeah, the solar callus is super important. Just information to know because burning your skin is not good, but teaching your body that its exposure like consistently over time, that's like the most healthy thing you can do for your body is learn your own levels.
I'm thinking of, he said that people with darker skin, when they move north and they don't have as much light, like where their ancestors are from, like from Africa or where, equatorial places, when they move north, the whites of their eyes turn yellow because they have a little jaundice because they're not getting enough light, because it has to do with the way that vitamin D is made in their melanin. So darker skinned people need more light than lighter skinned people.
Yeah, that I found that super fascinating. Also, I think you can tell when you look at somebody's eyeballs how, how was it Edgar Allan Poe that said, your eyes are the windows to your soul. Was it Poe? I think so. Um, but it is, I've seen that before in people where their eyes are like yellow or cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, something's going on with this they're sick or something's up.
Mm-hmm.
And, or you start getting dark circles under your eyes. It's just our
I've
bodies.
always had dark circles. So maybe that has to do with what I need because I'm always sleepy, I'm always cold,
Uh-huh.
and I've always had dark circles. So I probably need to do more sunbathing.
Um, so yeah, the vitamin D levels, I had some notes on that, because people, especially in the wintertime. So I think I have such a passion talking about this subject because this is not an exaggeration, but when I was like in second grade, I remember it being February. And it was the first time I felt sad where I went to my mom and I was like, I'm really sad. And I was a really sensitive kid and I cried a lot. And I mean, I would cry, TV shows. I mean, I was just like very sensitive. But I remember telling my mom I was really sad and she was like, well, it's okay. It's Valentine's Day, and she bought me like a cute new sweater or something for Valentine's Day. And like every single year after that, I have something weird with February because I think my body's been in so much darkness and it's so cold for so long that February is the month that I go into a slump,
Mm.
really bad slump.
Mm-hmm.
And I know February is the shortest month of the year, but it feels like the longest, darkest phase ever. And it's every February. And I actually, this is funny that I have it right here. I bought myself this happy light where I plug it in and then, it just like emits artificial light, but it's something because here in Tennessee, it stays super overcast. So this is the best I can get, but it's the light spectrum it's imitating the sun basically
Okay.
in the spectrum that my body is depleted from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to shine this on myself for at least 30 minutes a day in the winter time.
What is that called?
This is called the Happy Light,
Okay.
but it's by Verilux. It's a company that you can buy these. It's seasonal affective disorder. I definitely know that I have that and I suffer with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I do is I biohack and I get my Verilux artificial sunlight on me. And then I make sure I am upping my vitamin D plus K2 supplement every single day. And I probably take way more than I'm supposed to take of vitamin D, but it's one of those supplements where you'll just pee it out if you don't need it. It won't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a lot of that in the wintertime. And then naturally, as it starts getting warmer and the sun starts coming out, I thrive in this weather that we're in right now.
Yes.
I walk everywhere. I only want to eat fruits. I'm having my probiotic drinks. I want to go to bed early. It's amazing. And I love life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing how much temperature affects my mood. Um, you know, anything over 65 degrees, I'm like, life is beautiful. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it gets cold, I'm not built for that. But they're telling me that I need to condition my body with coldness more. And we'll get to that in the 8 steps. But I just wanted to,
Okay.
okay. So they said when you die, your light leaks out.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. So
We're beings of light. We're a light being,
maybe
but we're
there's a few
also,
things. One of the most common prayers in Orthodoxy, one of the lines says, Heavenly King, Comforter, and Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere and fillest all things.
Mm.
So that's like the light permeating everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then one priest was explaining death, and he put it this way. He says, God is the source of life, of energy, of everything. And when you disconnect from that, you will die. So it's just like a phone. When you're plugged in, it can go indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take the phone off the charger, it only has so long before it will die unless you plug it into source again, right?
Yeah.
And the farther away you get from source, the more, evil is present, and the more faster you die, basically. So,
Yeah. My spiritual father kind of, because I asked, there were some like basic questions that we were asking him. And he said, is God in hell? And we're like, he goes, of course he is. God is everywhere. And we're like, okay. And he's like, think of God being light. He's light. And as you are able to take in his light and you are becoming more like light and you're turning towards him, you're radiating, you're mimicking, or how did he say it? His light is shining on you, and that's what you become. You start reflecting that out of you.
mm-hmm,
But when you turn away from the light, you just start seeing darkness. But the light's still hitting your back. Like God's always with you. So you can turn around at any moment, but it's
mm-hmm,
a process of actually being able to take in God's light. And
mm,
that's, the purification. And I love that analogy because I was like, man, even the most lost people, all they have to do is turn away from the darkness. That's it. It's just a pivot. It's just a tiny little step. But just that analogy of God and light and being everywhere, no matter what, is so beautiful and so life-giving.
yes.
It's comforting.
Well,
So
that is the essence of the word repent, is to basically turn around and go the other
mhm,
way. Repenting is not like saying you're sorry and crying and blah, blah. It's like choosing to do a U-turn, basically, towards the
mhm,
light from the darkness. And then there is a level of punishment called the outer darkness,
mm,
right? So that's the opposite of where we want to be. We do not want to be shut out in the outer darkness. And then, so the light leaks out when you die. And then I thought of lots of saints take a lot longer to decompose than normal.
mhm.
I wonder
Well,
why.
I first heard about that with Yogananda, though,
Uh-huh.
too. I think there's a lot of holy men out there, and he was the first one I had ever read about that passed, he actually predicted I'm going to pass out of my body today. He gave a talk and then he left his body. And then the coroner's office said that it looked like he had literally nothing was decomposing in his body within 45 days afterwards.
Mm.
And so that was like, what, is that true? And then as I've gotten to know about monks and orthodoxy, these saints, it's the same phenomena has
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. So they said mice that were fed junk food at the right time were more healthy than mice fed good food at the wrong time due to circadian rhythms and the light that they were exposed to. So there's another mouse experiment.
We love our mice.
And trying to prove that this is more important than what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. I mean, they were talking about that. We have a very rushed, stressed lifestyle. So most people, you know, eating good foods is great, but eating at the right time and is your body able to process that food correctly? And that's the problem, is like we're stuffing ourselves full of processed foods when our body's not optimal in digesting it or using it as fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes us sick and sluggish and feel bad.
Yeah. And it was funny because he was like, you don't have to exercise and eat right as much as you think you do.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really stressing, like, you can rest and you don't have to be going, like for 12 hours a day to be
Mm-hmm.
thin and healthy. And he
I
was like,
really think it's more about your nervous system. What's your nervous system look like?
yeah, because he's like, cats don't exercise, or right? They just lay around and they look svelte and nice. And
Yep. I
so,
mean, I know some chunky cats though.
so okay, yeah, blue light on your skin can be harmful. TV, computer, phone. This was interesting. The light from the phone, the actual light, is more addictive than the content.
Yeah.
So, guys who were like looking at PORN and stuff on their phone, they think part of the addiction is the light emanating and not just the sexual aspect of it.
Yeah. I liked his take on that because he was like, next time you're like looking at a hot girl or a hot guy on your phone, remember it's just spectrums of light you're taking in. That's
Mhm,
all it is. And
mhm.
it was like, that's really like a great reframing there to like break an addiction or to break I don't have a PORN addiction, but I think we all have addictions to looking at our phone, excessively and too much. And then I'll look at my phone. I'm like, why am I looking at Instagram again? Or like, why am I checking my email again? I'm
Yeah,
really bad in the morning. Like,
yeah.
I have to tell myself for like the first 30 minutes I'm awake, I'm not looking at my phone. And that's really hard for me, like really hard.
I know, and you start to miss it too. You're like, it's been a couple hours. I need to look at it. Like, but
Yeah.
why? I just want to like have it in my face right now. And I guess I'm addicted to that toxic light,
Yeah,
which
right.
they say can make you infertile. And they were like, they've had to move the window of infertility in guys in the past 40, 50 years. Like, their sperm counts now would be considered infertile 50 years ago.
She's getting on my nerves.
Gigi, eat the cat.
uh, um, yeah, that was really so. Let's before I forget, I wanted to talk about the blue light
Mhm. Versus red
and
light.
windows. Remember that section? Like corporate. So like I'm in. So say you walk into a house and the house is like, wow, you have all this natural light.
Mhm.
Or you're working in an office and you're like, but I get a lot of sunlight because we have windows around us. I did not know this, but the light or the windows that are installed in your home or in these corporate offices, they put a filter that only allows blue light into the building or the home because it's not as hot
Oh,
as
the glass actually has a
the
filter.
glass.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's happening is you think you're getting sunlight all day, but you're actually just beaming yourself with the blue light. Um,
Oh.
Instead of like getting both spectrums that you need,
Yeah.
because we need red and blue, and then at night we don't want any blue, we just want red.
Okay.
So yeah, like that's kind of a false narrative too, is like thinking I don't need to actually walk outside and put the sunlight on me because I don't have curtains on my windows and I can look out my window and sun gaze. I don't actually need to go outside and look at the sky.
Mhm.
And you have to because you're not getting the correct type of sunlight on your body.
Mm. Good point. Yeah, so being awake at night with the artificial light there's like is not optimal because we don't even know how much the full spectrum of light can benefit us yet. They're
Mm-hmm.
still studying this.
Yeah.
And
So were you still sorry?
no, all I was going to say was like doctors know that patients in dark rooms do not heal.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds sad. Like if you're hurting and you're healing in a dark room.
They did this other thing with mice where they were like, this is so bad, but they took half of their blood out took 50% of the blood out of this mice, and then they put half of those mice in a dark place and the other half like getting natural light, and
Mhm.
the mice in the light recovered and then the mice in the dark died.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. Um, Another really important takeaway I got, because, okay, so thinking about food too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we live in processed food world, and we have to be really intentional about the food we eat and like what makes us feel good. And I didn't even think about this, but he was like, think about the food you're eating. If it's like a cow or a lamb or like an animal that's has light in its body, you're
Mm-hmm.
actually consuming their light. So there's like an energy transfer um, from like animal. And then he said it's called like food seasoning. So like a banana has been seasoning in the sun for seasons. And then we take that and then we eat it, and it gives us fuel and energy
Mm-hmm.
because it's been getting seasoned in light. Um, but if you go buy potato chips or, you know, anything that's been processed, there's no type of like energy exchange there. It's just dead food.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that, you know, I was pescatarian for a little bit of time. It made me really sick. But the whole reason I did it is because I don't like how, I don't think anybody does, but I don't like how the meat companies kill and treat animals. And I think it's really, I mean, evil, the way that we
Industrial farming
kill.
is disgusting. Yes.
It's so incredibly tragic.
Yeah.
And I just, this was a few years ago, and I was like, I'm just going to the store and I'm picking up processed this meat, you know, beef or whatever, bringing that home. And how do I know that cow wasn't scared or fearful at its death and release that fear hormone into its body? And then that's what I'm eating, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I think just being really conscious about where you buy your meat. And again, it's just, it's a lot of work to be healthy and like conscious about all this stuff.
I know. And your doctor doesn't know anything. You know, you have
He's like,
to
here's a
sift through,
prescription.
yeah, all of this crap to get to anything that's worth knowing. Um, so we talked about the pineal gland, and then that made me think of that verse. I don't know exactly what verse, but it was like, when thine eye is single, the whole body will be full of light. Do you remember that verse?
Yeah, that's
So
good.
there's another esoteric.
Oh, that's, I've never thought about, huh? Because yeah, the like the melatonin production, we have to sleep well. Sleep's important.
Mhm.
I have a hard time sleeping. That's what I deal with the most. Um, and then we're able to maybe capture the light, the sunlight, the correct way. I don't know. It's
Mhm.
fun to think
I'm
about.
sure somebody knows about what that means, but I don't really know. I just thought of it. Let's see. Artificial light came into being around 1879. So we're not talking about fire, because that's a more
That's red light. That's
permissible.
great. Yeah.
I'm thinking Benjamin Franklin with his like electricity. Do you know that story with the key and the kite and all that?
Oh yeah.
So they're discovering electricity, and he was a creeper, part of the Hellfire Club,
Oh, I mean, I
right?
knew he was a creeper, but
Yeah. And then Thomas Edison, the inventor of electricity, or the light bulb, right? That
mm-hmm.
has changed the way we live. He was not such a great character either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with the way that he treated Nikola Tesla, and just the whole electricity fight with the direct current or the alternating current, and why we don't have free energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's a whole nother thing to
Yeah.
talk about, right?
Yeah.
And let's see. Modern life is the antithesis of natural, they say. And then Mark was saying, Matt, he was like, the light we spend our time under is important because light is the force that controls the function of our cellular engines and metabolism, sleep cycle, production of hormones, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
all of those things.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's,
He
yeah.
said, altering the light, we cease to function the way we're created to. He didn't say created, but I just put that, like the way that they say evolution, but
Yeah. I did want to, before you get into the steps of the light diet, I wanted to bring up this wild study I found online. Like, just like I said earlier, you could look up arms and different avenues of this all night long if you wanted to. But I was looking up just mitochondria and just in general online. And it was saying the mitochondria has been implicated in several human disorders and conditions such as cardiac dysfunction, heart failure, and autism. And I was like, autism? Because you got to think, we're not, as a culture or as a society, definitely our government, corporations, we don't, what is the mitochondria? It's the powerhouse of the cell. That's all we know. And so, this is really interesting. Mitochondria, when you have a baby, is your mitochondria is inherited from your mother only, not the father. So if your mother had a great mitochondria book, then you will probably inherit that as well. And then you pass that along. So there's that's a whole nother avenue of like how to have good mitochondria and how to like remap or rewire the way your body produces mitochondria and its energy functions. Because you can heal your mitochondria. You don't have to just accept the lot you've been given. Okay. Now, you probably will deal with like autoimmune issues or diseases until you figure out like, oh, this is a mitochondria issue. So I need to figure that out. But a lot of people will never discover that. And it's important as women because, of course, you want to pass down the best genes to your children. My mom, I feel like I have great mitochondria. I look at my mom and she's like, she'll call me and say, I walked 7 miles today. And I'm like, you are 74. And then she does her apple cider vinegar shots every single day. And she's just like a health engine. And it's probably why I'm so passionate about, I just grew up around it. But the study in the autism. So I just have to read this because I just found this. It's on spectrumnews.org. They are starting to look at mitochondrial diseases and linking it to autism. Okay. So, and we've seen a lot of more children that are being born right now are on like some type of spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And so why is that? And I've always thought that, like, why are children being born? Like, what is a correlating factor? Like, I know there's a lot of different things and it could be food, water, whatever, but I really think we as a generation are passing along and not paying attention to our genetic buildup, which is based on mitochondria. And we're passing this along to our children, and our children, we have no idea why they have a learning disability. Or your mitochondria is how your brain operates. So if your mitochondria sucks, of course your brain isn't going to operate the way it should.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the virgin birth of Christ and like inheriting just that from the woman's side. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting. I did not know that. So I was like, wow, we as women have a big responsibility to make sure with our children and reproducing.
Because all of the eggs that you're ever going to have, you have them when you're born.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's 3 generations. Like if your grandma, and how does that go? Like your grandma's pregnant with your mom and your mom has her ovaries, you're in there. Because you're born with all of the eggs.
That's weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's a wild thought. Yeah.
So you really have to go back like generations of health to repair things right now that your grandma did.
That's like generational, if you heard generational curses or generational, like that's real, it's in our DNA. They were actually talking about that in this study, how they are, I wish I had had more time to like read this, but if your child has autism, they're encouraging people to start doing mitochondrial investigations into the mother's lineage, into her DNA system.
Mm-hmm.
So like looking at the mother's autoimmune issues, and then looking at the grandmothers and the great grandmothers and just seeing what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. And Jewish people, their lineage, I think, goes from the women's side. Like if your mom's Jewish, then you're Jewish.
Okay.
So there's something to that.
Yeah, there is.
That you inherit from your mom is more important. Yeah. And then he was talking about Dr. Wallace, who works in this field, and he says disease is mitochondria being dysfunctional. So all diseases can be traced back to bad codes that copy.
Mm-hmm. But we can repair that. Yeah.
And light is a big part of that, right? Light is the first step before food and exercise. You need to get your light. So let's do these 8 steps of the light diet that he outlines real fast. Unless you had any other notes you wanted to get to?
I am out of notes, but I just love this stuff. So I can.
Yeah, we're going to do.
Things will just ping.
We're going to do sequel next week of mind gut.
Yeah.
Your
microbiome and what is gut flora and leaky gut syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 8 steps of the light diet he outlines. This is from Matt Maruka. Number 1, sleep with the sun.
Basically, well, we're already messing that up. It's already dark out.
So go to bed as close to sundown as you can manage, right?
That seems really hard.
It does. But he says if you have to stay up past dark, use candles or fire at night or blue light filters.
I do think that's wise.
Yeah.
And he says, don't look at a screen 3 hours before you go to bed.
Yes. Which that is super hard because we always like put on something silly to fall asleep to, and then like wake up and turn it off and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's just your mind wants to keep going, and then we need a distraction. So
I have that's why sleep is so hard for me. Even if I try to go to bed early, I'll like lay in bed and I'm just like, my mind.
The worst for me is like, if I have to set an alarm to wake up at a certain time, I cannot fall asleep because I'm just thinking, to get up in 8 hours, to get up in 7 hours, to get up in 6 hours. Like my brain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It ruins it for me.
There's a app called Insight Timer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have it on my phone, and I used to meditate to it like every single day. I have like hours and hours logged into this thing. But when I found orthodoxy and I started studying that, I looked up to see if they had any orthodox, like talks or prayers or anything. And they do. And it's the Jesus prayer. And this guy will say it over and over and over again. And I've listened to that a few times going to bed at night.
Oh, nice.
It goes for like 11 minutes. And I always I think I say it with him in my head, and
Uh-huh.
it's something that my brain's going to do something. So I'm tricking it into doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always fall asleep to it.
Oh, nice. That's very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, so I was watching this little YouTube about life at the Jordanville Monastery and Seminary,
Mm-hmm.
where all the priests go, and there's monks there also. And their regimen is very close to what he's talking about.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is just ancient, monk
Yeah.
living. They wake up with the sun, they pray or have the liturgy, which is in place of the meditation that he's recommending. But as
For
he's,
2 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they wake up and they have their vespers or their liturgy or whatever, or their prayers. Um, and then just all of the rigors that he's talking about, I'm like, this is almost how the seminarians live. So there's
Yeah.
another, when you're living the Orthodox life, like, it's so healthy and beneficial in ways that science hasn't even caught up with yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they talk about the newest weight loss fad is intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing that since the beginning of the church, right?
Right. Yeah.
So number two, so number one, go to sleep with the sun. Number two, wake up with the sun and watch the sun rise to get that juicy red light, which is probably the hardest.
That is the hardest.
Yeah.
I think though that's kind of like where people are biohackers are getting like the red light Juve therapy
I was going to
machines.
ask you, what is a Juve red light? Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, my friend has one. I
Uh-huh.
really want one. So if anybody wants to buy me one, it's only $1,100. Um, so I don't have
It's for
one.
my DNA. I need that.
I need red light spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's a machine and you sit under it and it repairs it's so good for your body. But a lot of people do this because have you heard of naked sunbathing?
Mhm.
Like people like to bathe their genitals. And so a lot of people will do this with the red light because it's in their house and it's easy to do. And so it's getting a spectrum of light that you almost mimics like the sunrise.
Uh-huh.
But you can do it at any time of the day. And there's like red light sauna therapy kind of situations. I haven't been to those, but I need to learn more about red light. But everyone that I trust in the health field praises its benefits. And I know that like I said, one of my girlfriends recently got one and I went over to her house and we were oohing and awing in front of it. And she said, you don't want to stare right into this light, but even if you close your eyes, the light will penetrate your eyelids.
Mm-hmm.
And the most mitochondrial production is done through the eyeballs. That's why gazing at the sun is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're not getting it in through our eyes, skin contact is really important too, but the eye contact is the most important.
Right. So that's why you need to throw your sunglasses away, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your shades, man.
Yep. Okay.
You just put a cat on your face.
Okay. Number one, go to bed with the sun, wake up with the sun. 3, sunbathing and working outside. So no SPFs, no toxic chemicals, nothing like that. You just need the pure, I guess about 20 minutes is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like what you would recommend?
Yeah, I actually wrote this down the other day. There's a neuroscientist I really like to study. His name is Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a protocol that you can follow. And I wrote it down the other day because I was like, I'm going to start following this in the mornings. So his number 2 is it's called forward ambulation, which means just forward walking.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you do an optic flow, sunrise in your eyes, metabolic well-being, and then get outdoors. You need natural light stimulation. Like, and then he said, delay caffeine by 90 to 120 minutes after waking up. And he also said, if you walk, like you have to walk immediately when you get up. And he said, just go for like a 10-minute walk. That's all you really need to get started for the day.
Okay.
I have not done this protocol, and I wrote it out on 4/9. Part of it's hard work, man.
Yeah,
All this stuff.
I know. It's a rigorous, like, monk lifestyle.
Okay. So also number 5, step 5 is fasting, no eating until 11 to 12 p.m. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like there's these disciplines that we have to get our body used to, I get. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically be outside as much as possible. That's just the rule. Like if you can take the elements, you want to be outside all the time, which I hate the cold. So I don't know. Let's see. Eat seafood is number 4. As much seafood as you can eat, besides like no farm raised, no weird salmons with mercury in,
Was Jesus pescatarian?
He ate fish, yeah. All his disciples were fishermen.
Yeah, but did he eat meat?
He ate the fish and the, yeah.
I thought he just ate fish. I think the reason I'm bringing, maybe somebody can correct me, I have no idea, but from what I remember, it's like Jesus only ate fish and not meat, but I'm not really sure. I'm not 100% on that. So correct me, somebody, but I feel like Matt Merca got that kind of off of like, just like kind of what Jesus did, or like what a lot of ascetics and just different religions, they'll just stick with fish. They won't eat meat. But
well, let's see. Jews would eat.
They won't eat pork. I know that.
They don't eat, yeah. So that's the unclean versus the clean animals. So I don't see why he wouldn't eat like lamb and beef and the hoofed animals. That was okay. The Bible doesn't really say. That's a good question for a priest.
Jesus eating like a cheeseburger type situation. Like.
Okay, so number 5, no fluoridated water, which we talked about in our other show. Get your water filters, get your man, they had a bunch of different machines they were talking about. Like I have a thing that spins my water into a certain molecular
there
structure.
is,
and I'm like, what is that?
I want one of those too. So it's called a Sovitic machine. Sovitic. It looks like a little UFO saucer type thing, and it glows, and so people put it in like in their kitchen or on their bedside table, and people put glass of water next to it, and then it emits a certain type of frequency that makes your water molecules the purest form that they can be.
Right. Is that where Penta water comes from? I've heard that was that's a brand. And it has something to do with the molecules in the 5 shape of Penta, and I don't know.
Oh, what?
Yeah, the bottled water called Penta is supposed to be like that. I don't know.
Okay.
And then that made me think of like sun tea, because he says after I spin my water, I set it in the sunlight so it can like gather that energy as well.
Oh yeah, they take a lot of things to like just next level, like like all you need to chill, like just chill a little bit.
That's next advanced biohacking.
Yeah.
But I was like, I love sun tea. Like that sounds good. The water sitting out and collecting the sunlight. I don't know if
the sunlight in the tea. I like that too.
Okay, number 6, bathe in the cold. Okay, I probably will never do this. I'm sorry, but I am not Wim Hof. I hate cold. I'm sure it's super good for you. If I was like terminal ill, maybe I would try this, but they are all into like cold showers and ice baths and just
Yeah.
being out in the cold. That sounds like hell to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't like the cold. I was told one time that I don't have enough brown fat lipids in my body, and that's why I can't stand the cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, how do I get more brown fat lipids or brown fat in my body? Because apparently we have two types of fat, and
Mm-hmm.
brown fat is good for you. And then like the white fat is the stuff that doesn't really serve us.
The jiggle.
And it's the what?
The jiggle.
The jiggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the brown, I could be really wrong about this, but when this is from what I remember researching about it, brown fat is created through cold exposure. And that's why the cold, that's why like Wim Hof can do what he does, is because his body, his fat, his
Mm-hmm.
insulation is different than ours.
Oh.
Because we just, me included, because I don't do cold therapy. I just have the gross white jiggly fat on my body. I don't have the cool brown fat. And so I don't know enough to talk anymore about it, but I do know that these guys, they know the benefit of cold therapy is really important. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, they're like getting into ice baths and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
That sounds so terrible.
There's this, you can do like a sauna and get your body really, really hot and
Mm-hmm.
then jump into an ice bath. And I've
Mm-hmm.
thought about maybe doing that. That seems like the only way I could do it though.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm always sleepy and always cold, so maybe this would help me like build up that insulation. I don't know.
I'll jump in a cold plunge if you'll do it.
Ugh.
We can do a polar plunge on esoteric adventures.
Okay. Okay. Number 7, avoid man-made EMF. So big cities are terrible. Wi-Fi is terrible. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5G is
Yes.
terrible.
6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So all of these things are bathing you in harmful electromagnetic frequencies, right?
Very bad. Yeah.
And he said, do a web search on cell tower cancer clusters, and you will be
Oh,
amazed
yeah.
at what you find. So you've got smart meters. Those are terrible. The Wi-Fi, like if you live in a condo or an apartment building, and if you ever like log onto your Wi-Fi in a apartments and you see all of the other people's things pop up and you're like, I'm bathing in 30
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Wi-Fi's right now. So try to avoid
So
that as much as possible.
Luke Story, for everyone listening, he's the podcaster that had the Matt Merca guy on. So Luke Story, he's a good podcast. He's a biohacker guy. He's Eastern religion, but he's got a lot of great guests and knows health really, really well. And so one day I was listening to this podcast and he was living in like LA or something. And he's like, I was so sick all the time. I had low energy. And he said he knew that the frequencies of the Wi-Fi and everything was probably messing him up. And he was about to move out of his place and he found out like 2 days or a week before he moved out that they had installed one of those 5G antennas, like literally across the street, on top of a building. And he said, he goes, I can't guarantee it, but I know my body and I was so sick for just the onset of it. And he says, I know it's now because of that 5G antenna. I get made fun of a lot from people because I'm like, there's another 5G antenna on top of that building. And here's another one. And it was funny how all those rolled out when everything got shut down. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was so creepy. And I was like, why is no one asking questions why we're all locked up in our houses and then these are going up everywhere?
Mm-hmm. There's this interesting theory about um, EMFs and PANDEMICS.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about every time there is a big change in like electricity and things like that, that's when big breakouts happen. Like the
Ah,
Spanish
okay.
FLU came with the electricity and stuff like that. So it could be that these things exacerbate
Mm-hmm.
symptoms that mimic
Right.
like FLUS and things like that. So thought that was really interesting.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
And then like if you go to New York City or some kind of big city, you are never in the dark.
Mm-mm.
And
Blue light, just constant. Or Vegas, the healthiest place on earth.
right. So I could never live in a big city where you can't see the stars and you are bathing in this Wi-Fi soup and there's artificial light on you all the time. And luckily we live like out in the country and we live on a kind of like a pretty dark street that it's almost black when we try to
Yeah,
go to
that's
sleep at
great.
night. So I'm really thankful. And we turn off all the lights, like all the porch lights, everything, just so that we can get that blackness because I think
Mm-hmm.
that is just as important as the
Mm-hmm.
light
Oh,
for
totally.
sleeping
Yeah.
and melatonin and darkness and
Yeah.
everything. So,
I actually ordered this podcast today. Kind of, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to start taking this more seriously because you learn this stuff. And then if you don't remind yourself of it, you kind of forget about it. And
yeah.
so there are these little stickers called junk light protectors or something. So, like I know for me, when I'm laying in my bed at night, I have this smoke detector that shines this green light out from it. And I mean,
Mhm.
it's so bright because my room is so dark. And I was like, I'm going to have to put like tape over that guy. And then I sleep with a fan because I like the noise. Well, my fan emits like a little red light or something. And so I bought these, they're like little round stickers and they come in white, red, and black. And you can literally place them over the little junk light. So it's
Mm,
not messing you up as you're trying to sleep at night or,
right. Good. That's really good.
yeah.
I hate those tiny little lights too. Like they bug me when I'm trying to go to sleep and you open one eye and you see a little red dot or something like you just said.
Yeah. It's like, that's so bright.
I know. It's annoying. Okay. Void man-made, EMF, move out of the city. Uh Number 8, and this is the last one. He says avoid toxic people, spend time with good people. And that's pretty elementary sounding, but it's really not easy to do. Is
I think taking inventory of like toxic people in your life is kind of hard to do as well.
I know. Because
Mm,
who do you cut out and like how and when and what do you tell them? I mean, but if you've just got that person who just makes you feel like crap every time you're around them, they're
yeah.
depleting you of nutrients and resources. They're spiking your cortisol and, all of
Yes.
these things. So you have
Yeah.
to temper your interactions as much as you can um, to protect yourself
Yeah.
and then seek out people that have the light in them. I mean, that's a cheesy way of saying it, but when you go to Orthodox church or lots of churches have those kind of people that make you feel great when you're around them. You want to spend time with them because you feel awesome when you are
Right.
together.
Yeah.
So that
And
sounds kind of
you can feel people, just like we were talking about earlier, like looking into somebody's eyes.
mhm.
Um, I know I have to work with public a lot. I'm more introverted, I would say. I need alone time to like recharge and refuel. But during the day, I'm with a lot of people and all types of people. And I can feel when somebody comes into like my space or I'm talking with them, I'm like, oh, I need to take a few steps back and like not get too close. And just the way people talk about life, like what's their perspective? Are they doom and gloom or do they see hope and light and in the world? Like
Mhm.
world is weird and it's kind of crazy, but also like, let's try to make ourselves feel good as we sift through the evil that exists out there.
And I'm not trying to bag on people that have problems or depression, because everybody needs help and friends and friendship. I don't like the whole good vibes only
Mm-hmm.
mantra. Like, I'm not hanging out with you just because, unless you have good vibes, because a lot of times I'm trying to bring information to people
Yeah.
that will help them, truth and beneficial facts, and not conspiracy theories, but whatever. But they don't see it that way. So they would probably say I'm a toxic person because I believe what I believe. So,
Well, I see it this way. I have a lot of friends that, as I call it, like they just stick their head in the sand and they're
mhm.
like, oh, I don't want to learn about that, or I don't want to talk about that because it's bad vibes or it doesn't make me feel good. And I'm like, but it's the truth. And
It's like
so
medicine.
you don't want to know the truth about what's happening in the world. So I think you've got to be balanced in it too. Like you can't ignore the fact that there's sex trafficking, like happening in the world. Okay, let's just not talk about it because it makes you feel bad.
Mhm.
No, like I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like that too, and it's really annoying.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing to balance.
Yeah, it is. It is hard to balance, but learning people's boundaries and your own boundaries. And I respect, I don't talk to the, it's weird because like I don't feel like I can be my authentic self around those types of people because I'm constantly like, I feel like this,
Censoring yourself.
yeah, it's like that. It's like my light feels diminished around them because I can't shine the way that I truly like the way I operate. And
Exactly.
so yeah, it's they're trying to like shine their light. I'm like, no, you're just sticking your head in the
Well,
sand, bud.
here's
So,
our false positive vibes, right?
ooh, that's great. Yeah.
Junk light.
Junk light. I'm
Yes.
gonna get them a
Just like
sticker.
junk food, you got junk light. And the part B to that is cultivate your own inner light. And I would say, living the Orthodox life is the way to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm partial to Orthodox Christianity, but I think people finding like a therapist or, being able to have a relationship with themselves and learn themselves and all that stuff is really, really good. And I think I haven't watched it yet, but Joe Rogan had a guy on his show like last week or something. And the topic is why religion is important for people. Why believing in religion is important for people. And I was like, ooh, I can't wait to like listen to that because I think finding your relationship with God is just really the most important thing. And for some people, that might not be the orthodox path, the orthodoxy path. I mean, I would hope that people would find the closest thing to truth, but finding God, it's I know that orthodoxy is a like you said earlier, it's a big spoonful, like some people have to kind of get into it slowly. So
Yeah. So that is all I have for tonight.
that's all I have too.
And next week, we are going to continue this talk about our bodies with the mind gut connection. So,
We have more rat studies to talk
yes,
about. We have food deserts to talk about. It's going to be a
we're
good
going to
one.
teach you how to love your guts.
Love your gut. How's your gut, man?
Yep. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you're having a great, bright week, and we'll see you next time.